That's where you want to be. Are we back on? Okay. Hey, hidden technology, great television's back on. Okay. If you're streaming to us, great. But no matter what, wherever you are, if you're hearing us or watching, 928-541-1016. That is the number if you've got a question for Ansgar Mitchell from the National Forest Service. Thanks for coming in. We certainly appreciate it.
My pleasure.
We've gone over restrictions, and I know that we're in drought. I mean, there have been some years better than others. This year, not so much. We are in some drought conditions. Tell us how that applies to prescription burns and mitigation these days, because things have changed over time. Our education's gotten better, our technology's gotten better, and the Forest Service and wildland fire departments have gotten a whole lot better at what they do. So how's this evolved? Where are we at right now?
You know, when we talk about, like you were saying with the drought, we look at all those considerations in terms of, areas that we're going to do prescribed fire. We do prescribed fire in all those ecosystems that we were talking about, whether it's the Sonoran Desert, all, juniper grasslands, the timber understories. We do it in all field types. We are a land management agency, and that's, one of our goals is to look at using fire as one of our tools. So when it comes to prescribed fire, it's one thing that is done in again looking at all the conditions where fire managers, we have what is called a burn plan.
Okay.
And in that burn plan, it describes what would be successful effects to be most beneficial to that ecosystem. Okay. So it covers from the temperature to the relative humidity to the wind, or whether they're in excess, or the real premier, I guess, winds that we would like to have to get the desired effects. So that burn plan is, it takes years of planning.
Sure.
To run modeling in all of those ecosystems or those land types, to not just see how it would respond, but to also put science into prescribed fires on itself. So prescribed fire, right? You think of prescribed fire or prescriptions as a medication, like a doctor would treat or give you if you had an ailment, if you had a sinus infection or anything like that, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So, we are kind of saying that we are practitioners of the land, to where, as I mentioned in our conversation prior to the show, that, the land is in, need for some restoration.
Yep.
And it has its own ailments with the overgrowth and needing some of that treatment. So we are treating the forest with fire, and that burn plan is that prescription.
Right.
So when we're looking at that prescription, we're looking at things that, say, on the day of burning, we do what is called a test fire. And if that test fire is successful, we'll go ahead and continue with the prescribed fire plans. If it's unsuccessful, what we have burned, we'll monitor it, we'll extinguish it and mop it up, and then we won't burn until conditions become favorable to us again.
What would you call an unsuccessful attempt trial fire here?
So, if we had one actually, like about a month ago. We were doing some pile burning off of 89 just south of Prescott near Indian Creek.
Right.
So we were doing some burning. The resources, we're seeing that the activity wasn't what was representative of the description in the burn plan.
Okay.
Conditions were actually more active than anticipated, and we were seeing that should something get into an area across 89, it would have been challenging to suppress it, and to try to suppress something across 89 while still trying to burn piles, it wouldn't have been achievable.
Okay.
So the folks on the ground kind of making those decisions look at that, because when we start burning, we have to we continue to burn and leave an area, but that area where we started still needs to be checked. So they didn't want to leave that area, and they deemed it as unsuccessful because fire activity with the prescribed fire is much like a contraindication for a doctor to say, like, if this prescription isn't working out for you, maybe you should try something else out. or stopped taking the medicine. That fire behavior wasn't working out for us, so we stopped putting fire on the ground.
Okay. Well, interesting. I mean, we were learning a lot about this today. We hear about the prescribed fires all the time,
Yep.
and there are times that we smell it too.
Yep. Oh yeah.
The smoke tends to go in this direction sometimes, but it's all for a good cause.
Yeah, and it's a heavily coordinated effort between fire managers, our local community partners, our interagency partners with the National Weather Service, the Arizona Department of Environmental Quality, and the smoke impacts that could occur over any given area or any given community. So, I always like to say that we're not out there just doing things willy nilly. That there is a lot of planning and coordination that goes into every single one of these burns.
And as you said, it's way ahead of time. You're talking about burns now that you won't do for a few years yet.
Correct. Yeah, we're in a planning phase, and the planning phase we're in right now, some of those won't get treated for at least 2 to 3 years out.
Wow. Okay. Weather better be perfect in 2 years.
Yeah, right.
All right. Talking to Ansgar Mitchell from Ansgar. Excuse me. I'm sorry.
Right.
Ansgar Mitchell from the Prescott National Forest. 928-541-1016. We're going to take a quick break, and we've got more from the Prescott National Forest and KYCA after this. And we're back here on the KYCA PM show. Hope you've been enjoying this, and it's been full of information. We got a lot more to go. Ansgar Mitchell from the National Forest Service is here. We've been talking about restrictions. We've been talking about prescribed burns. Now we're talking about not just mitigation, but also people and what they can do, because you've got people who live in the forest. But let's face it, it can happen to any of us anywhere, as we have seen many times in the past. I mean, not just the Goodwin fire, but we had the Viewpoint fire happen a few years ago, where chains dragging on the ground apparently started basically a 5,000-acre grassland fire that took off in just a matter of minutes. And within 5 hours, you were at 5,000 acres. And fortunately, they managed to get that taken care of. But that wasn't even on Forest Service land. That was state land and municipalities and things like that in the county. So it can happen anywhere, anytime that you've got grass. So what do people need to know? And if you wait until the last minute, this is it. This is the last minute. So what do people need to take a look at?
No, you're right. I mean, we are here. It is fire season.
Yep.
And, I would say preparedness. Preparedness isn't just a one-time seasonal thing. It's, really looking at, where we're at seasonality. We have monsoon season coming up, flash flooding, any type of, natural disaster that it could occur. So really, as far as preparedness wise, with wildfires, thinking about, those important things. We talk about them all the time, whether it's papers, pets, and prescription medication, right? Those are some pretty important three things. But, the one thing I think if people are evacuated, they don't think about it in terms of consideration is the duration.
Yeah.
I think that most people in their mind think, oh, I'll only be evacuated for a few hours or a day or maybe a couple of days. Evacuations depending on the situation could last for weeks. So thinking about whether you need to relocate to whether you're with family, friends, or if you have to go out of the area, and if it's for a duration, thinking about the cash that you might need to have, water that you might need to have, just anything that is truly in the mindset of a preparedness, making sure you have enough fuel in your car. Before this call, we were talking about, I wasn't originally from this area, but I've experienced many wildfires that move rapidly in my hometown in Central California. The year before I moved out here, we lost over 260 homes, which there were 6 fatalities. And again, fire moves. It moves very rapidly in certain kinds of conditions. So as you mentioned, now is the time. Be prepared. A great resource that's out there right now to receive notifications is Alert Yavapai. It's through the County of Emergency Management offices, and if you get signed up with Alert Yavapai, it'll alert you if there's an event happening in your zone, which you can monitor your zone through Genesis, and it'll send you updates that whether if there's a wildfire or flood or earthquake or any other type of emerging, disaster or incident, you'll receive those notifications. So that's one thing you can do to stay informed. And then just making sure you have those other materials, supplies ready to go this time of year. Other things in terms of preparedness is if you live in a wooded area, is creating defensible space around your home. Making sure that you have any of the shrubs or wood piles, lawn, yard furniture, anything like that should a wildfire burn in your area, and if embers were to land next to your home, that it wouldn't cause a new fire, because that's the primary cause of some of these devastating fires. Is it's not really the main flame front of the fire. Fires can spot up to 2 miles ahead of itself. So imagine getting a hot ember 2 miles ahead of the main flame front in your front yard in your wood pile, and your house then becomes the next new fire.
Wow.
Ahead of it. So
wow. I think we got an education, at least in Prescott Valley, on this with the Legato apartment fire on April 1st.
Yep.
Fortunately, we had a lot of rain, precipitation, things like that. However, big embers, were spreading for miles. And if it had been dry, if it had been June, things would have looked a lot different in Prescott Valley.
Absolutely.
So we're fortunate there, and we've been fortunate on fire in the area for the most part the last few years. It seemed like for a while we were having quite a few big fires. The Goodwin Fire was a good example here in the local area. The Indian Fire 20 years ago. It seems, and I don't want to jinx it, that the last few years we've had our share, but they haven't been really huge busting fires. Would you attribute this somewhat to added technology, more knowledge, more education from the Forest Service and other fire officials?
I would say that we did have the Crooks Fire that happened. I want to say 2 years ago, and that was when we were at a pretty dry. We were in a drought, like one of the most extreme droughts part of the year.
Right.
And I think that when that fire started, we were just on the cusp of where fuels were still moist enough but dry enough to carry fire, but wet enough to where it wouldn't be as extreme. We do have a lot more technology available to us with the use of uncrewed aircraft systems, where we have IR technology with those resources. But again, we utilize a lot of tools to us to where, we're still fighting fire with hand crews. We're still fighting fire with engines. We're still doing it with, going out there and cutting trees and putting in hand line, no different than a lot of our previous generations have done before. We do have the aircraft resources with the fleet of air tankers, and I would say that a good part of it is that we're fortunate to where we have a tanker base just outside of town that flight time or response time is pretty quick to any of these starts that happen on the forest.
That's true. And that's been fortunate for us. I mean, it has certainly saved us, and the Indian Fire was a great example 20 years ago, literally having planes 5 minutes away
Right.
and being able to drop as quickly and turn around, especially on the first day. That was something. Okay. Ansgar Mitchell from the National Forest Service. We got one more break, and then we're going to wrap things up in just a few minutes here on KYCA PM. 928-541-1016. That is our phone number. Back after this. Zinzilieta along with Ansgar Mitchell from the Prescott National Forest. And want to thank you for coming in. This has been great. We wanted to talk more about restrictions and mitigation and what you folks have been doing in terms of prescribed burns and all of that. So now you keep throwing POWIC at me, and I keep hearing it, and I keep forgetting what it's all about, but it's a vital component to our local fire efforts. And then we want to talk about some other things with the National Forest and Information. So go ahead, let's get started on that.
Yeah, so just here on the screen, kind of what we're doing with this is, as we're going through either prescribed fire or wildfire, we want to make sure we have this resource that our communities have available to them. Again, we've mentioned that we have a lot of new people living in the Tri-City area and Yavapai County, so we want to make sure that they have this one-stop shop of source of information, where you have a phone number, the 928-925-1111 number. That number you can call if you need question or information about the fire restrictions going on right now.
Okay.
If we have a wildfire that's happening, you can call that, and someone should answer the phone and be able to maybe provide. It might not be all the details, but we will answer it to as much as the details that we have.
Okay.
And then also the for prescribed fire, if people have questions, hey, is that smoke, is that what I think it is, or is that a wildfire? So again, we can call for prescribed fire. It is for fire information. That's what it's designed for.
Okay.
And I'll go ahead.
I'll just say right now, you're not doing prescribed burns right now. You see smoke, it's probably a problem.
I mean, and a couple of weeks ago, we were doing prescribed fire off on the Verde Ranger District. So it was in that grass fuel type, and we look at all seasons to do any kind of prescribed fire. So I wouldn't say it's exactly out of the picture, but we are looking at any type of time to treat with prescribed fire.
Okay. And then you wanted to bring up POWIC.
Mm-hmm.
That is PAWUIC. So what does that stand for?
So yeah, POWIC is the Prescott Area Wildland Urban Interface Committee, and they are a group that hosts a meeting the first Thursday of every month except next month in July, where they A lot of the times we'll have agency report outs from ourselves. A lot of the times I'm there reporting out for the Prescott National Forest. There's also folks from our local partners with the Prescott City Fire, Arizona Department of Forestry and Fire Management, Groom Creek Fire, any other a local organization that you can think of will typically is there. APS is there, county commissions is there, and really we're there for that resource for our communities that one time a month to give any updates on information and really be a resource to connect with. A lot of the good, there's Conrad Jackson from the city of Prescott. A lot of the times people are asking him questions of how they can get the chipper out to their residents or to their community, and
Yep.
and he does a really good job of giving that information to the community. So it's really all of us partners that if we have anything that could help our communities, that's what we're there doing. So it's right now hosted out of the Office of Emergency Management there on Commerce with and so we meet there monthly, except next month.
Except next month.
Except
Yep.
July.
A little busy.
Yep. But no, it's a great resource for if you're looking to become a Firewise community. They have a lot of information of how a community could do that, as far as grants and what needs to be done for to maintain Firewise community status, and just a lot of great information. It's been going on for, I want to say, well over 20 years, that group for the Prescott area. So
All right.
Yep.
And it's certainly, as we've said, you don't need to be scared. You need to be concerned to make sure that you are protecting yourself and your family as much as possible. And along with that, protecting the forest and the community here by not throwing your cigarettes out of the windows, as I've seen a few times, and making sure your chains on your trailers are secure, other things like that. It's just common sense.
right. And I guess the other thing I would like to say is that we're homeowners.
Yeah.
So we should have some ownership in our homes to create that defensible space. So should, in the event of a wildfire happen, that we can feel confident that we made our best efforts to protect what is near and dear to all of us. So, but that's
That's what we need to do.
Yep.
Okay, so very quickly, we've got a few minutes left. I guess the first resource is to go to the Yavapai County Sheriff's Office or Office of Emergency Management, get your sign up for Alert Yavapai, and start from there.
Yes, sir.
And then we go to the forest. One other thing that I wanted to bring up, since you're here, and I have a few minutes left, we know that people have different ways of recreating, from horseback to hiking to motorized vehicles and things like that. Are you seeing better use of the forest from citizens as well, and people who are being hopefully a little more mindful of the forest than they might have been in years past?
Yeah, I would say that we are, but then there is also the people who don't know about the, not even just restrictions, but just general use on the national forest. Lynx Lake on South Shores, a prime example of like the parking situation over there. So people coming up not knowing before they go and or looking to those resources to actually understand how to use the national forest.
Okay. So that's a big issue, always has been. Probably getting a little better, but education is always key.
Absolutely.
All right. So if anybody has any questions, if they want to talk to somebody about, well, I'd like to go four-wheeling, I'd like to go do some recreation in the forest, where do they need to start?
So if you're going to be on the Bradshaw Ranger District or the Chino, I would recommend calling 928-443-8000. That is the number for our front office there on Cortez Street.
Okay.
There is the Prescott National Forest webpage, and then we also do have our social media as well, where a lot of our information is as well. And that's, again, the QR code that was up earlier. That's a great resource that is shortcutted to a lot of that information. So that's those are some of those resources that I would say, and that's 928-443-8000.
Okay. All right. Well, Ansgard, great hour. You see, this is the thing. We love bringing you folks in and making sure that we get the word out. And if there's one fire we can mitigate, one fire we can stop before it starts, then it was well worth it.
Absolutely.
All right. Well,
thanks for having me, Jason.
Hey, we're looking forward to having you folks in again later on in the year. We're never outside of fire season. Let's face it.
Right.
There's always something. We have seen wildfires in the area in December.
Yep.
We have seen it in times when we've been short of snow and short of rain. It can happen anytime. People just need to keep that fire wise up.
Yes, sir.
All right. Hey, that's the end of the show. I want to thank you all for listening out there and watching and being patient with everything that happens here at the station. Hey, local and live is the best way to go, right? Yeah. Stick around. Marty Myers has got the news coming up after the top of the hour. So for all of us, stay tuned. We've got more to come tomorrow morning, tomorrow afternoon. Karen Fan will be in. Thanks for taking care of us and seeing us today. We'll see you later.